I kind of called it oil painting foundations because there are some things, some rules that are applicable to all the assignments that you'll be doing in the future. And first of all, it's some secrets of old masters that we all should remember all the time, is that when you paint, the darks should be more transparent and the lights should be opaque and thick. And that will be focus of our assignment today, this week. What is transparent? What means opaque? Another serious rule that you better do not break is fat over lean. So what means fat and what means lean? So lean means that there is almost no medium or no medium added to the paint. And fat means there is medium added. So all mediums are considered fat. So the more medium added, the more fat we consider the paint. And here, let me go back. In this attachment, consistency of paint, there is a very well described consistency of paint, and you can see how it gets fatter or actually thinner. So consistency of paint changes. So please review that so you can understand better how paint gets fatter, because the medium added more and more, kind of progressively more. Okay? Then thick over thin. So here is a little bit a kind of mind-blowing reverse of the concept of fat over lean. We also consider thin paint as opposite to fat. Thin paint is when it's added, have a little bit of mineral spirits added to it. So when you start painting, you don't have to add mineral spirits. Some people just rub the paint thinner. But you can, if you add just a little touch of clean mineral spirits to it, then it will be easier to spread and apply your first layer of canvas, on canvas of paint. So when you start, you can add a little bit of mineral spirits, whatever you have, is it Gamsol or terpenoid, or odorless mineral spirits, whatever you got from the store. Remember, it has to be from the art store. Mineral spirits from the hardware store are harmful for our health. So thin paint is a little bit easier to spread, easier to apply. And then you can start painting with thicker paint right from the tube. And then you start making paint fatter. And fatter is by adding medium. So this is kind of traditional progression of layers of paint. And if you break that progression, then what happens, nothing probably happens right now, but in a year or so, your painting will crack. And that might be a problem, especially if you sold your painting, and then people will be unhappy. Okay, another very important rule, start with the broom, finish with the needle. I don't really know if that's coming from the old masters. I just heard this rule. It probably is. Probably Leonardo da Vinci was saying something like that. And I just, everywhere I studied oil painting, I heard this expression. And not only oil painting, it's related to all painting mediums. Start with the broom means you start with as large brush as possible. Finish with the needle is when almost everything is done. Then you can progress with the tiny little details and switch to a tiny little brush to finish the eyelashes, for example. Don't ever make the final little details right away. That will just distract you from the most important things. So start with the broom means focusing on the general big shapes first, and then progressing with the details last. Sometimes students are really concerned how they're going to finish the texture on the pot, and I'm saying don't worry about texture on the pot, it's just icing on the cake. So the main thing is to build the cake. You need to build the whole shape of the pot and see where is light and where is dark. And then you can kind of let the paint dry and progress with the fine texture and add these details. Hope that's clear enough. Okay, and we're also going to focus in this lesson on process of applying the paint. And there are two major processes we'll focus on, glazing and scumbling. So glazing is when you're applying transparent paint with medium over the dried underpainting. And when you do the same, but you use opaque paint, so you also take opaque paint and trying to make it transparent or more transparent or translucent by adding more medium, this process is called scumbling. Okay, you will notice that when you do that, the paint appears more cloudy. Here is the very good video explaining transparency. I just included it here for your review. Now, I keep talking about mediums, but what is a medium? So medium is basically your paint binder. It's already what is inside your paint to hold pigments together. In oil painting is linseed oil or safflower oil that are most common mediums and binders. They're already inside your tube. In acrylics, it's acrylic medium. Medium also can serve as a vehicle. What means vehicle? It just makes paint easier to apply, and that's how we're going to work with mediums for easier application. You should not confuse medium with solvent, and solvent is the turpentine, turpenoid, Gamsol, mineral spirits. When you add solvent, you do not make paint fat, you make it thinner. So that's a difference. There is a recipe of old masters for oil painting medium. Its traditional mixture was of 1/3 linseed oil, 1/3 of oil, some kind of oil. That would be linseed oil or stand oil. Stand oil is thicker. And they added 1/3 of Damar varnish and 1/3 of turpentine. Today it changed to half oil and half turpentine. Why? Because Damar varnish has tendency to crack. And that's why we're seeing cracks in some old masters' paintings. So all these art researchers and scientists that research quality property of mediums, they kind of made it, it's a widely accepted point of view right now that Damar varnish only should be applied on the top of painting to protect it from dust and dirt, but should not be mixed inside the medium because it causes cracking. Right now, there are so many mediums available. There are a lot of contemporary mediums for oil. Here I listed all those mediums for oil. For acrylic mediums, there are even more of them. So you would have to choose your kind of acrylic medium. For acrylic medium, many people think, oh, it's acrylic, I can just use just water. But you will, yes, that's true. You can use water when you're just a beginning painter. But when you're getting serious about it, when you really want to become a serious professional painter, you should start researching mediums with acrylics. It will really enrich your painting, and there are so many different mediums for acrylics these days. If I start describing it, it will take us 2 hours at least. Okay, there are some internet resources. They're all focused on many demonstrations focused on glazing. So here, but this, and I included here a link to Mitra, to oil painting, but you can also find all kinds of mediums on that resource, on that link for Mitra. Okay, and there are some demonstrations for glazing. Transparent and opaque. So here, what I posted here, it's the kind of list of paints I made. I made it when I was a student for myself, so I could just better understand the quality of transparent opaque paint. Okay guys, so what you will do, you will choose one color from the first row, from the transparent group of colors. So the titles, names of the pigments would be the same in oils and acrylics. This pigment just naturally tends to be transparent. The only thing I would recommend, do not use light pigments such as yellow. Sienna also is kind of light, so choose some dark pigments, alizarin crimson or raw umber, or you can choose ivory black, you can use French ultramarine, daxilin purple. So any of these dark pigments, pigment that seem to be dark enough, because otherwise it will be harder for you to make darks for this full value painting. So you will need to achieve full darks and really light. So for the lights in transparent painting, you'll just use the white of the canvas. Okay, so what you will need to do in your painting, you'll create basically 3 small paintings on one small canvas. It's a canvas or a panel or whatever support you want to use. Size approximately 9 by 12. If you have 10 by 8, it might be a little bit too small. Probably will be harder to do small manipulation. You need a smaller brush. So the size is up to you, but approximately 9 by 12. For the transparent painting, use dark transparent pigment that you will choose from the table above. For opaque painting, you will use the same pigment, but you will make it opaque by adding titanium white. By the way, at the bottom of our Blackboard week 2, I posted also a link that explains all kind of different white pigments. And you can just review it if you're wondering why we're using titanium white, what if I use zinc white. So there are different purposes for different whites, and it's all well explained. So you'll need brushes, you'll need solvent, you'll need rags and baby wipes, and you do not necessarily need medium, but I would recommend maybe you start trying using medium if you want to practice glazing or scumbling techniques. But what we will learn here, we will learn layering and blending and some scumbling and wiping out technique. You will divide the canvas in 2 parts. Well, and I forgot to actually add there is a 3rd part on the bottom. You will paint a sphere with transparent paint on one part and the same paint, but plus white in the other part. These 2 paintings here, 2 green spheres, were made with the same paint. It was Viridian green, but you can see how dramatically the way the paint looks changes when you add white to it. It's just like you're using completely different tube of paint. So it kind of looks more milky. That's the difference you will observe in your painting between transparent and opaque paint. How the paint looks differently when you add white to it. Okay, and as an option, I want to offer you an option. You can make each one 3 of this painting, 2 spheres and the value scale. You can make them on a separate canvas. If your canvases are maybe, you find them too small and you find it's hard to work with small brush on such a tight space. If you work on the same canvas, all 3 kind of parts of the painting will be on the same canvas, you might find it difficult to, because you might be touching what paint, so you kind of have to figure out how to work on it without touching it by your hand. You can also recommend maybe see how here the white spaces divide these 3 parts. If you put a piece of tape that separates these 3 parts, they will not touch and there will be neat white space between all the parts. And this is optional. It doesn't have to be that, separation. You can just paint side by side and they can touch. Again, it will be additional pressure on you to make this edge neat and clean. So taping it might be just easier solution. Yes, and on the bottom, as I mentioned, here should be value scale. I just did not have a value scale painted with the same color, so I just put here black and white. So you will use the same color for the value scale. And on the value scale, I want you to mix it with white to make progression from the darkest possible paint from the tube and to the lightest light possible. So just step by step. And here I think I have 11 steps. For you in your value scale that you paint, you'll just make 9 steps value scale. I recommend you mix value step scale first and then just use whatever leftover paint. You will use it to paint the opaque sphere. Number 1 step, probably paint the sphere without any white, because it will dry much faster. You will notice that transparent paints also dry faster, so that's a significant thing to observe how the paint behaves at drying time. Speed of the drying time is another significant quality of paint. Different paints, they have different drying time, and the white dries longer. So when you mix this paint with white, you will notice that it will be drying longer. So I would do this first, the value scale second, and the painting with white third. That I would recommend. So to paint the sphere, you kind of need to have good drawing skills. Remember the chiaroscuro quality from drawing 1. If you're not familiar with that, some of you maybe did not have drawing 1 yet, please research online. There is a lot of information online about chiaroscuro. It's basically the way to create illusion of form with paint or with other mediums like pencil, charcoal. They all kind of mention this concept of chiaroscuro. When all these values in art, we call values lightness or darkness of paint or other media, pencil, charcoal. We're talking about chiaroscuro there. And here is the process, step by step. You can first lay out your drawing, just a sphere, a circle. If you have trouble doing it, get something that you can just trace. I have no problem if you make a circle with tracing. This is not important. What's important for us is how we complete it with paint to create the illusion of roundness, illusion of 3D. I also recommend mark the terminator. So terminator is a term in drawing and painting. When you first mark, the terminator is the part where light changes into the dark. And you can first mark it with your pencil, or it doesn't have to be pencil, you can just draw with the brush right away. So you can mark this line that separates light from the dark. And it's okay just to feel it a little bit darker first. And then when you start kind of blending with your brush, then you can spread the paint and kind of drag this paint up to fill all the rest of the area. So we are trying to achieve this effect. So with your brush, you'll be moving your brush and spreading paint with your brush. You can also use your brush to wipe off paint. Like if you see it's too dark, you just kind of use your brush for wiping paint, and then you have to wipe your brush with the rag. Make it clean again, and then when your brush is clean again, you kind of remove the paint from the brush. You will wipe the paint again from your canvas. Remember, do not use turpentine when you do that for wiping paint, because it will wipe too much and your paint will run. So using turpentine for, if you add a little bit of turpentine or mineral spirits, if you add a little bit to your paint on the palette and mix it with the paint to make paint a little bit more fluid, a little bit thinner, easier to apply, that's fine. But when you're trying to make things lighter, if you add turpentine there, it will just create too much of the hard edges. It will be difficult to handle. The good news there, if this happened, if your paint is runny, you just wait, just leave and go read a book or have a cup of tea. And when you come back in 15 minutes or so, the turpentine will all evaporate. I just keep saying turpentine. Actually, we're not using real turpentine. We use turpenoid or Gamsol. But forgive me if I use turpentine word. It's just because all this mineral spirits, they're just turpentine substitutes. So it will evaporate very quickly, and the paint will become easy to blend again. So just be patient. Remember, painting is a slow process, and kind of have to be patient with that. With acrylics, it's the same with water. If you add too much water, it will be more difficult to control. So just try, maybe put your paint a little bit thicker, and then it will be easier to blend it. Okay, so this is the first steps that will be the same for transparent and opaque processes. And when you start opaque painting, remember for transparent painting, do not add any white to it. So your white areas, light areas will be the white of the canvas. And for your opaque painting, you just start the same way, and then you use your mixtures of range of gray values. Well, I say here from raw amber because I used raw amber for my demonstration. You are using any color that you chose from transparent group. It's better to arrange this value scale on your palette kind of in order from light to dark, or from dark to light, whatever you prefer. And then remember that First, you paint the larger groups, so start with the dark, kind of mix some kind of grayish value to paint the big area on the light part, and then you can just start blending them together. And remember, your lightest light should be reserved for the highlight, so do not cover this whole area with white. Remember, it should be some kind of gray, and so do not use your lightest values right away. Kind of try to balance it. So this will be a lot of experimentation and learning for you. It will be learning from doing. And then remember, for the online discussion, we will share the process and things we learned through the process, and we will discuss it. Yes, so add the highlight as the last step of your painting process. Remember, the highlight, as my teacher once said, the highlight is like a princess. There shouldn't be too much of the princesses, so put it only last and only when you're sure that everything else is ready. Looks good. So the highlight is just a little touch, a little decoration. Do it last, reserve it for the last. And here is the photograph that I recommend you use. If you find a different photo from internet of a white sphere with lights and darks and with the shadow, that's fine. Sometimes some photos may be better with the shadow a little bit more defined. That would be fine. Or if you want to work from life and make it a little bit more challenging for yourself, you can paint from life. If you have a white ball, some kind of like a billiard ball, or I don't know, just a plastic white ball from Walmart will do. Or you can use an egg. You can use an egg. You can also find a lot of videos online how to paint an egg. So that will be very useful to watch. And here it is, guys. So good luck with your project, and just let me know if you need any help. Remember, I'm available during office hours. If you cannot make this office hours, need to schedule some different time, we can make an appointment. So please send me an email. Just visit me during office hours. Remember, for office hours, you need to sign up for the team I created. The team is called Alla Parsons Office Hours. And if you're not sure how to find it, I'll send you a request. Just let me know you need help. Okay, and good luck. Bye for now.